When the sun drops below the horizon tonight, most of us simply flip a switch. Darkness disappears instantly as we turn on our phones, televisions, or lamps. We have almost completely conquered the night, to the point where we forget what darkness once meant. For most of human history, however, sunset was a completely different experience. Without artificial light, early humans became vulnerable as soon as darkness fell. Predators could see and move through the night far better than we could, so our ancestors had to find shelter, stay close together, and wait for morning. But eventually, something changed. Humans stopped simply hiding from the darkness. We learned to push it back with fire. And that seemingly simple discovery didn't just help us survive the night. It gave humans something they had never truly possessed before: extra time to think, talk, imagine, and connect. Evidence from places such as Wonderwork Cave in South Africa shows that humans were controlling fire roughly 1 million years ago. Fire is usually discussed because it allowed humans to cook food, but its importance went far beyond cooking. It created a small, protected circle of light in a landscape that was otherwise completely dark. During daylight, survival demanded movement. Humans tracked animals, searched for roots and plants, collected food, and traveled between water sources. But once the sun disappeared, the fire changed the rhythm of life. Inside that warm circle of light, people could finally stop moving. They could sit together, stay protected, and spend time doing things that had nothing to do with immediately finding food. The night was no longer simply something to survive. It became a part of human life. So what did ancient humans actually do during those dark hours? One clue comes from modern hunter-gatherer societies. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner studied conversations among the Yuhuanzi of the Kalahari and found a striking difference between daytime and nighttime conversations. During the day, people mostly discussed practical matters: food, water, hunting, gathering, work, and problems within the group. But when night arrived and people gathered around the fire, conversations changed. They became stories. People talked about distant places, ancestors, spirits, relationships, experiences, jokes, and events that had happened long ago. Around the fire, humans could think beyond what was directly in front of them. They could imagine worlds they had never seen and pass knowledge from one generation to another. The campfire became more than a source of heat. It became a social center where groups created shared memories, traditions, and stories. In a world without television, smartphones, or electric lights, the fire itself became the visual center of the night. People gathered around its flickering light, sang songs, told stories, danced, joked, and shared their fears. These activities may look like simple entertainment to us, but they had a much deeper purpose. Stories could teach younger members where to find food, which places were dangerous, who their ancestors were, and how people were expected to behave. Myths could explain things that nobody could otherwise understand. Nighttime gave humans a rare period when the entire group could sit together without constantly moving through the landscape. In that sense, the darkness may have helped create something fundamental to human civilization: shared culture. But humans didn't stay awake all night. Eventually, the fire would become a bed of glowing embers and people would sleep. Yet the way humans slept before modern artificial lighting may have been different from what many of us experience today. Historical research has suggested that pre-industrial people sometimes experienced what is called segmented or biphasic sleep: an initial period of sleep, a quiet period of wakefulness during the night, and then another period of sleep. This pattern should not be treated as a universal rule for all ancient humans, because sleep varied across cultures, environments, and individuals. But the evidence suggests that nighttime wakefulness was not necessarily abnormal. Before bright artificial lighting, darkness itself shaped when people became tired, slept, and woke. During these quiet nighttime periods, people may have simply rested, listened to the surrounding environment, tended the fire, cared for children, or talked quietly with others. In a world without electric lights, even a short trip away from the fire would have meant stepping into almost complete darkness. The night sky was also dramatically different from the one most modern people see. Without cities, streetlights, and illuminated buildings, the Milky Way would have been far more visible. Stars could help people understand direction and changing seasons, while the movements of the moon and sky became natural markers of time. Over generations, careful observation of the night sky contributed to navigation, calendars, and early astronomy. The darkness was not empty. It was filled with information. Eventually, tiredness returned and people went back to sleep. They could rest on animal skins, woven mats, or whatever materials were available before waking again with the arrival of daylight. Then the cycle began again, finding food, traveling, gathering, hunting, making tools, caring for children, and returning to the fire. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived under a rhythm controlled largely by sunlight and darkness. There were no alarm clocks demanding that everyone wake at the same time, and no glowing screens keeping people awake long after their bodies wanted to sleep. But this does not mean ancient humans had perfect sleep or peaceful nights. Cold, hunger, insects, illness, predators, and other dangers could make darkness extremely difficult. The night could be beautiful, but it could also be dangerous. Then humanity began changing the night itself. Artificial lighting slowly transformed how long people could remain active after sunset. Oil lamps and candles extended the evening, followed later by gas lighting and eventually electricity. Suddenly, darkness no longer had to determine when people stopped working, traveling, socializing, or reading. Modern cities became brighter and brighter, and nighttime became something humans could push further into the background. Our world is now filled with streetlights, illuminated buildings, glowing screens, and artificial skies. Yet our biology still responds strongly to light and darkness. The body continues to use changes in light to help regulate sleep and wakefulness. In other words, even though we have transformed the night around us, our ancient relationship with darkness has not completely disappeared. Perhaps that is why sitting beside a campfire can still feel strangely familiar. It is why conversations often become more personal when the lights are low, and why looking up at a clear night sky can still make the modern world feel suddenly small. For most of human history, darkness was not something we could simply switch off. It was a huge part of our environment, shaping when we moved, when we rested, what we feared, what we talked about, and what we imagined. Our ancestors didn't spend the night scrolling through glowing screens. They sat around fires, watched the stars, cared for their families, shared stories, and eventually disappeared into the darkness to sleep. The night once forced humans to slow down, and even after thousands of years of artificial light, some part of us may still remember what that felt like.